groundbreaking, faith-driven media company that has turned the entertainment industry on its head.
The record-making, crowd-funded series,
The Chosen.
His only son.
And you made this the hottest movie anywhere in the world.
This is Movie Guide, and we've given an award to Angel Studios.
And you are create, not complain people.
Only streaming service that leaves you better than it found you.
It's going to become the most powerful community ever in entertainment.
A global success with over 300 million viewers.
We crave those experiences.
Angel Studios is doing something radically different. They're listening to their audience.
If you lost your mind, you will not get on that bull.
The audience determines what they want to see.
Their word of mouth is phenomenal.
Angel Studios has created a platform that doesn't just tell stories, it builds movements around truth, beauty, and goodness. Jeff Harmon, welcome to We the People.
We the people. Why you quiet? It's time to stand up for the truth. How they coming for our kids, so who gon' stand up for the youth? Ay, and we know we win because Yeshua is the proof. Ay, we the people like Garcia, so that's no excuse.
Today's guest is a man who didn't just dream about changing Hollywood, he actually did something about it. Jeff Harmon is one of the co-founders of Angel Studios, the groundbreaking, faith-driven media company that has turned the entertainment industry on its head. You've probably heard of The Chosen, Sound of Freedom, and the current box office record breaker, King of Kings. But what you may not know is that behind these hits is a studio powered by the people. Jeff helped pioneer the Angel Guild model, giving every American, not just studio executives, the power to greenlight the kind of content they want their families to watch. Under his leadership, Angel Studios has created a platform that doesn't just tell stories, it builds movements around truth, beauty, and goodness. He's a builder, a visionary, and a man of deep conviction. And today, he joins us to talk about the power of storytelling, the future of faith-based media, and how everyday people can reclaim culture one project at a time. Jeff Harmon, welcome to We the People.
Thanks, Gates. Good to be here. Thanks for that kind intro.
Yeah, Jeff, no problem, man. You guys are just crushing it. And this is such a cool time to get you because King of Kings is just unbelievably outperforming at the box office. I mean, we thought Sound of Freedom was big. We thought The Chosen was big. And it seems like you guys just kind of stack one hit on top of the other and continue to break your own records. Yeah. And I want to talk about the Guild. I want to actually kind of focus the middle of our conversation around that because I think that's truly what makes Angel so different. But before we do that, just for some of our listeners that aren't totally aware with Angel Studios, I want to kind of build up the backstory. And so I'd like you to take us back to the beginning. I mean, what sparked the idea for Angel Studios? Was there a specific moment where you knew the traditional media path wasn't going to work and you all had to do something different?
Yeah, we have kids. I've got 6 kids, 13 down to 2 years old. I didn't have that many when we started. My brother's got 10 kids, 9 living, the CEO, Anil, another brother this is co-founded by 4 brothers. So another one's got 6 kids, another one's got 7 kids, maybe has 8, can't remember. Anyway, so we got a lot of kids. And there's a book called the User Method. It's written by an author named Jeff Schwarting. And in it, they go through and they study what makes the most successful companies in history. Specifically, they start doing research on unicorns, which is companies worth over $1 billion. And they found, as they studied it, that the vast majority of billion-dollar companies are created by founders who were just trying to solve a problem for themselves. So Steve Wozniak just got sick of the way computers were made, and he said, I'm going to make the computer I want to exist. And he made it, and that became Apple. And then you've got the Airbnb founders. They couldn't pay their rent in San Francisco, and they decided to rent out air mattresses on their floor at their apartment to a convention nearby, and that paid for their rent. And then they were like, oh, we can make a whole business out of this. We'll call it Airbnb, like air mattresses. Now, it became something very different over time, but that turned into the largest hotel, essentially, that doesn't own a single building. And Mark Zuckerberg was trying to figure out how to get friends. And so you've got these founders that are creating something to solve a problem in their own life. And the problem for us is that we know that culture is upstream from politics. It's upstream from pretty much everything else in the world. And the issue is that every time you go to a movie, you may like most of the movie, but then it'll have like some nihilistic element to it. Or there's things that you have a very, very hard time finding a place where your kids can watch films and movies that have good principles. And the sites that had the good principles were almost unwatchable because they weren't very well made movies. They didn't have budgets. And so we built Angel Studios to solve this problem for our kids and our grandkids.
So what role did your faith, or let's just say your traditional values, play in all of this? I mean, when you decided to do this at the outset, did you face, I mean, by the way, you were way ahead of the curve. I mean, we're now living in the vibe shift, but you were in front of all of this and you've capitalized on that opportunity. Very entrepreneurial of you, but it's this values focus. Did you face backlash from Hollywood or investors or even friends?
Well, the early phases of Angel, there's a saying, somebody, I've had several mentors tell me, if you're not getting pushback, specifically, they said, if you're not getting sued, you're probably not that successful of a company. And generally we try to avoid that, but we did at the very beginning of the business, we started out with a filtering company where you could take, it was like a remote control. You could take Hollywood movies and you could skip and mute scenes in movies that you didn't want your kids to see. So you could watch them as a family. So one example that was very popular before we started, it was called VidAngel, was the name of that company. But before VidAngel, there were hundreds of thousands of people downloading Game of Thrones episodes on the torrents that had all the sex and nudity cut out. And so there was a huge demand for people that wanted to watch it, but they didn't want to watch it with those scenes in it. And so what VidAngel did is it allowed you to skip and mute words or scenes with like an automatic remote control. And when we did that, Neil, our CEO and co-founder, he said, one day, I think that this will build up a large enough group of people that we can actually distribute movies that teach what we want to teach rather than just skipping and muting the stuff that is unacceptable in the movies Hollywood's producing. And so that was the initial goal, but we started out with this filtering, and then Disney, Warner Brothers, and 20th Century Fox sued us. We ended up in a 5-year lawsuit, and at the end of that lawsuit, we settled it out, and it was a very painful process, and we almost died. I mean, we're actually unaware of any other company that's been sued by Disney and survived. And then we appealed it, and then we ended up settling with Disney, and then we moved on, and we started doing original content after that. And we renamed the company Angel Studios. And so we did Dry Bar Comedy first, which has 6 billion views worldwide, and is stand-up comedy for we say is family safe. It's family safe. It doesn't mean that it's like kid understandable. It's still adults telling fun, like adult jokes, but not dirty jokes, not innuendos, no swearing. And so, but they might be like adult subject matter, And so Dry Bar Comedy, we've done 7. We started on that one because HBO started out, the home box office is what HBO stands for. They started out years and years ago doing stand-up comedy because it was very low barrier to entry. So we started out the same way. We did stand-up comedy. It's got approximately 150 million viewers worldwide, 6 billion views. Then after that, and it's so different. Like today, you've got King of Kings, which number 2 in the box office when it came out, beat Prince of Egypt on its opening weekend. It In Brazil, it just became the number one most viewed Christian animated film ever. In Brazil, is getting pretty good reach worldwide. And King of Kings, though, if you go back when I was reaching out to Dallas Jenkins and asking him, do you think you could make a TV series based on this pilot episode, this little short film he had made? I called him and said, do you think you could make one based on this? And we'll crowdfund it and get a TV series to the world that's built outside the Hollywood system, because Hollywood would never do something like The Chosen. And Dallas, to his credit, he took a leap of faith. He came in with us. But what people don't know is that first 4 episodes, where it's just a little tiny group of us with Dallas on The Chosen, I was trying to figure out how to get people to watch the series. And unlike King of Kings, which is this huge hit, it was like pulling teeth to get anybody to watch. And we started out with like, you could rent it. And then we tried giving away the first episode. And then we tried share systems where you could buy a season and give it to your friends. But you'd send out to 100 friends and you'd get 6 people to open it. And then, so it was very discouraging. And I got to this point where I was trying to understand, why are people not watching this? And I told my wife, I said, we're going to invite somebody over for Sunday dinner every single week. We're going to have Sunday dinner with them. And then I'm going to go make them watch The Chosen afterwards. And so we would bring people over to Sunday dinner and we'd talk, we'd have Sunday dinner and say, okay, now here's the real reason why I invited you over. We're going to watch this first 3 episodes of this series. And they'd be like, no, I don't want it. And I'd be like, no, sit down. I've spent 2.5 years of my life working on this. You're going to watch this series. And inevitably, every single one of them loved it. But getting them to watch it was so hard because everybody assumes that a Bible TV series is going to be awful. And it wasn't awful. It was great. And so eventually we cracked the nut with a pay it forward model. And we took The Chosen to the first 3 seasons and then to over 100 million people in countries all over the world in 70 languages. And then, so that's Angel's role in The Chosen. Then we go and we did Tuttle Twins, which is a TV series about these 2 twins. It's a cartoon. It's for like 12-year-olds. And it teaches kids the principles of economics. And they have a grandma who has a time-traveling interdimensional wheelchair who takes these Tuttle Twins back in history. And they meet like Frederick Bastiat, and they meet Harriet Tubman, and they meet Benjamin Franklin, and they meet, they're meeting people. They're meeting Mother Teresa and Mother Cabrini. They're meeting all these different famous people from history and learning from them. And then they even go meet Satoshi Nakamoto, who created Bitcoin. They meet Karl Marx, who's an absolute idiot in the show. But this TV series, The Tuttle Twins, was crowdfunded. It's launching season 4 soon. We just announced. And this TV series is starting to get like global reach. Argentina just licensed the Tuttle Twins to put on public TV, which is super, super interesting. So there is a huge shift. But then after the Tuttle Twins, we did Sound of Freedom. And Sound of Freedom is, it's a gigantic hit. Then we've just started releasing more and more and more shows. And through this process, we've developed a system that's based on the audience choosing what to hear. So recently, Film Threat, which is a large film blog, came out with an article that said Angel Studios is doing something radically different. They're listening to their audience.
Mm-hmm.
And this is unusual in the film space. And so what we've done is we realized that there's a system in Hollywood, and where it's broken is not the filmmakers. It's not the craftsmen. It's not the artisans. It's not even the actors. Where it's broken is there's a group of gatekeepers in Hollywood, a couple dozen people who control almost everything you watch. and they make the decisions and they walk on set. Like if you watch interviews with the Game of Thrones director, there's this famous interview that went viral all over the internet where they're saying, I was on set and a guy comes in from HBO that's high up and he says, I'm here to represent the perverts in the audience, and you are required to put full frontal nudity in this scene. And the guy's like, so you do it. You don't have a choice. You just do it. And so there's this element of these gatekeepers who are making terrible decisions. They don't understand what middle America wants. And so we're replacing those gatekeepers with what we call the Angel Guild. And the Angel Guild is a system where you as a viewer can join this guild and you get a vote on all the shows that come into Angel. And I, as an executive, can't pick a movie unless you as the guild first vote on it. And it's a wild concept. It got pretty, like when I brought it up a couple of years ago, this concept, a lot of the team were like, what are you talking about? So you're going to have viewers pay us money to watch movies that haven't been vetted yet, to vote on them. You're going to have them pay us money to do our work. And I was like, yeah, I think people will love it. I think that they want to pay to be a part of this. They want to support something. But I got so much pushback. People just be like, nobody's going to want to pay us to watch movies and vote on them. That's our job. And if you look at it a different way, and Gates, I think you're a member of the Angel Guild, right?
I am, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, if I had told you years ago, many, many years ago, and said, hey, I've got this idea. I'm going to make a toy. I'm going to manufacture it 50% of the way. And I'm going to ship you all the pieces of the toy in a bag with some instructions. And then you're going to finish the final manufacturing process by plugging everything together. And then you'll have your finished toy. And you're going to love it. And the more expensive the toy you buy, the more days it's going to take you to put together the final manufacturing process. And you're going to love this toy. That's Legos, right? And so I say to our kids, my wife and I, we say, when they're watching too much screen time, we say, hey, Harmons live on the other side of the screen. We don't live on the consumption side. It's not like Netflix. It's not like Amazon. We live on the creator side of the screen. And so we create the things that other people are watching. The Guild allows everybody to live on the other side of the screen. You get to come in, you get to vote on stuff, you get to give feedback to the filmmakers. They can't even get through without you. And then they change stuff and they make movies different. And you get to see rough cuts of movies. People in the Guild saw rough cuts of King of Kings that weren't even fully animated yet. And they got to give feedback and they got to help change it and mold it. And the same thing, they've seen rough cuts of The Last Rodeo before it even had like special effects, when there's like bulls that are in one scene, but the bull changes from white to black to brown because they're all, in the final movie, they're all the same color. All the bulls are, and it looks like one bull. But in the early rough cuts, you're seeing stuff like that. You get to see how it's made. You get to see and give feedback to these filmmakers, and you get to live on the other side of the screen with the filmmakers.
So Jeff, let me ask a couple questions about the Guild. But before I do that, I want to kind of back up just a little bit. So
Yep.
Massive success for The Chosen, massive success for Sound of Freedom. Now we're seeing massive success for King of Kings. And this deals with the Guild because we're talking about human consumption. I mean, what does it say about the content that people are craving, not just in this country, but as you talk about throughout the
Worldwide.
world? Why are they being ignored by Hollywood? And do you worry about that changing?
Yeah, I think that I don't worry about it changing. I'm so glad it is changing.
Yeah, that was a poor way to ask that. Not,
Yeah.
do you worry about Hollywood trying to catch up to you? You have changed it, and
I hope they
you've got a
do.
head start.
I hope they do. I hope that we get lots of competitors that are. I'm thrilled that Amazon's doing House of David, right, with John Irwin, and I don't want them to control the future, because I think we just get one cycle. I'm thrilled that they're making movies. we have to make sure something like Angel wins, because if you don't own the rails, if you don't own the kitchen that makes the food, you're going to get a couple of meals that are healthy. You know, we've been pumped full of junk food and fast food entertainment for the last 30 years. It's just pure junk food or fast food. And fast food seems like food, but it's not really food. You know, like it's not great food. And then we have a chance now where we've created some meals, right? But if you don't own the kitchen as a community, eventually that cycle is going to end. And we get a couple of cycles where they do the right types of films for middle America and traditional values, the values audience. And then because it's controlled by gatekeepers that are in Hollywood that do not share our values, and they're not going to anytime soon, they'll service that audience because they're forced to. We forced Hollywood to move. Like John Irwin's been very, very open about this. He says, House of David would have never happened without Angel. Amazon is looking at it and saying, we're making House of David because we can see that Angel's proven there's a market. But if we don't control the rails or at least like own the kitchen, then we can't continually make those meals. They'll change back. They'll put back in the nihilism. They'll put back in the stuff that we don't want. And so on that front, I think it's very, very important that there's competition from our side so that they move our direction. And if there isn't competition, we'll move right back the other direction.
Yeah, maybe we call them frenemies. But
Yeah.
when we talk about the Guild, I'm going to ask you a question later about the importance of movie theaters and actually attending a movie in person.
Yeah.
I want to focus on this element of community. It seems like what you've done with the Guild is build a community around Angel Studios, or I should say within Angel Studios. So talk to me more about that as about the community sense of what you built. I know the answers to these questions, so I'm asking for the audience. Do Guild members communicate with one another? What's that look like when you're in the Guild?
Okay, so there's different phases of the different sizes of the community. So Angel Studios has 60 million app downloads worldwide.
My Lord, wow.
And there are hundreds of millions of views, there's billions of views across all of our content. Then as you boil it down, around 18 months ago, we really started figuring out the Guild. We figured out the Guild. And in the last 18 months, we've had over 1 million Guild members join Angel Studios, and they pay between $12 and $20 a month. And so that's the core community. It's the 1.1 million people who are deciding. They're from 160 countries. I think it's, if I remember right, it's 160 countries. And they're getting in, and they're a super diverse group of people. They are from all walks of life. The one thing they have in common is that most of them, the vast majority, are people of faith. And even the ones who aren't people of faith, they're people of values. They have traditional values. And so this group of people saying, we want a different type of entertainment. And so tell me the question again, because I think
just about the community element. It's sort of how do they interact with one another?
Yes. Okay. So then, like, for example, the last rodeo in Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, we have an entire theater rented out, and there's going to be hundreds of people show up. They're going to do the red carpet, and these are Guild members. And we have a big celebration, and the Guild members are walking the red carpet with the actors.
That's amazing.
And it's kind of a mix between a Fan X event where you get pictures with actors and signatures and a red carpet where Neil McDonough is actually going to be doing photos on the red carpet with fans. And then you go in and watch the movie together, and then you come out and we have like rodeo food, PBRs attending. It's just this huge like cowboy party to launch the last rodeo, but it's all Guild members. And so we have these celebration events at premieres. And then when you go to theaters, if you watch King of Kings, like if you go search for King of Kings on TikTok, you're going to see people, just huge theaters full of kids, congregations renting out theaters for the kids. And a lot of that's tied to the Guild, and the Guild giving free tickets to kids so that they can show up to the theater and see something they've never seen before. So, yes, there's in person, and then online, the Guild has a system where you can vote, and when you vote, you can leave feedback for the filmmaker, and then you'll get a notification when the filmmaker reads your comments.
So
if you
Jeff, I know about this process and it fascinates me. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, so you go in and you type in, and preferably what you should be doing is you say, "Oh, it was a little slow here," or the film the film was confusing at this part, and you describe it. And then if you leave a very good comment that's constructive, you're going to see, oh, the filmmaker read your comment. And then every once in a while, you're going to have the filmmaker actually respond and say, tell me more about why this, because they're basically watching all these comments coming in, and they're trying to get all this noise. And what a good director is very good at is taking the noise and finding the signal inside that noise. And then they make their movie or TV series much better. But other Guild members leave comments on each other, and they'll upvote your feedback to say this, I agree with that, or downvote it. And the filmmakers can see second by second drop off data from the Guild, and they know where the movie was slow or where they were losing people, and it's helping them fix their movies and get them just right before they go to theaters or go to streaming.
It's such an American principle of like self-government. Your audience is helping to curate the content that they're ultimately going to reconsume. I mean, if you should care about anyone's opinion to make those decisions, it should be in part your audience. That's your customer that you're serving.
Right.
It's not mind-blowing, but you all have perfected it. So a fun question. Choose one or the other. A movie that you thought for sure was going to go gangbusters and didn't pass the Guild, or a movie that you thought had no chance and the Guild said, we gotta have this one.
Oh, that's a good question. Such a good question. I didn't know if Brave the Dark would pass the Guild. Brave the Dark, thanks to the filmmakers, it ended up passing. But Brave the Dark, when they submitted it initially, it had, I think, like 30 or 40 F words in it.
Wow.
And of course, that's not going to pass. So the filmmakers listened. They went through and they cut out every single one of those in post because they wanted it to be on Angel. And they listened to the Guild and they changed it, and they got it down to a PG-13 rating. And they got it to the point where the Guild passed it with very high numbers. And it passed. Another example would be this upcoming movie called Sketch that comes out on August 8th. Initially, it didn't pass the Guild. And the filmmakers took the feedback.
So hold on. If something doesn't pass the Guild, that's not always the end of the road?
It's definitely not the end of the road. In fact, like The Shift that came out in theaters went through the Guild 12 times.
Oh, okay. That's something I didn't know. So continue. I'm sorry.
So as a filmmaker, you could resubmit once you've made changes, as long as you score at a level where you can resubmit. There are some that are so low that we just say, no, just
got it.
Just go start over. But there are, as one fun thing about the Guild is as a Guild member, you get the chance to basically get the feeling of a Hollywood executive and that rush as you crush the hopes and dreams of a filmmaker. Just kidding. No, but you also get to find King of Kings. You get to find Sound of Freedom. You get to find Brave the Dark. But so Sketch, which is coming out in August, had, I think, like 30 instances of the Lord's name in vain in its first, right? It was just, OMG, OMG. And the Guild didn't pass it. They went through and they took out every single one of them except for the one that was actually a prayer, in a prayer format, where dad's worried about his kids. And they took out the rest of them, and it passed at 87. So it jumped 30 points in the Guild just by removing the Lord's name in vain, right? So this is the magic of what happens. And I've had some films, I can't talk unless we've signed them. Can't go through and talk about them, but there are some films that I wished had passed that just didn't make it, which means my idea of what was good was not matching with what our audience thinks is good at this point.
Yeah. So I look at this as sort of a community driven approval process. One thing that's fascinating me about this whole process, fascinating to me, is that you're sort of building this trust between the creators and the audience. Trust is kind of the bridge for that gap. If
Yep.
we zoom out sort of from a cultural perspective, do you think there are other industries that could implement the guild and strengthen themselves from a customer base standpoint?
Music probably could.
Yep.
They're probably like, I mean, we basically have a 1 million strong user base. I mean, I think there's companies that have done similar things where they send out like their most hardcore group of fans or customers, like free samples of
Mhm.
their things they're experimenting with and get feedback on. So that's kind of a similar idea. Um, but I mean, it's a simple old principle. It's just like Film Threat said, they're doing something radical. They're listening to their audience.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's it. It's that simple. It just, the key is over time, like right now, I think the guild, it's probably, think of it a little bit like self-driving cars where, the car's driving itself and it's doing a good job based on all the input you've given it. And then every once in a while it just swerves towards the wall, and you got to grab the steering wheel. I think the guild, like my job as the chief content officer is just to make sure the guild that we are discovering the truth that the guild's giving us, right? The truth is in there. And then it's a matter of asking the right questions, having the right algorithms to make sure it's statistically sound and getting the truth out of it. So I think we're most of the way there, but that last percentage is going to be hard. Getting it to where, because every once in a while there's a movie that we see and we're like, oh, that doesn't match. It doesn't mean that the audience didn't give us the truth. It just means that maybe our systems don't quite yet recognize the truth.
A common, well, that's a poor way to introduce this, but a theme on this show is common sense.
Yeah.
And you all are
Mhm.
exploiting common sense. I mean, it's
Yep.
what, most businesses that thrive do that very well. Common sense is typically easier to execute on, and you all are finding that. So in traditional media, the content is often dedicated to the format, ad models, streaming, etc.
Yep.
How does your format liberate the content instead? So many of us just focus on the message, but you focus on both the message and the model. Why does
Yes.
structure matter so much to the story?
Models matter so much. It's like a lot of people say, oh, because we're trying to do something good for the world, like The Chosen or Chosen seasons 1 through 3, or Sound of Freedom is fighting anti-sex trafficking. Just because we're trying to do something good, a lot of people come up and say, why don't you do it as a nonprofit? Get all the nonprofit dollars, and then you don't have to worry about being profitable. And my answer is always, when is the last time you've seen a movie that completely changes culture that was a nonprofit movie? Like, you have to have an economic model that makes profits in order to reach the whole world. The reason why Game of Thrones was so massive is because it reached the whole world through economics. It made like 20 something billion dollars for HBO. And so if your structure is a nonprofit, then you can't make your shows and TV series reach everybody. The economic model is what allows you to actually change culture. It's like Tesla versus all the old electric cars that tried before. Tesla actually made a economic model that worked, and they've done more for electric vehicles than anybody else with all of the efforts, that have happened before, because they just got it right. And economics are what solved the world's problems. I think another way to look at this is, okay, so this is deeper into the model and deeper into the psychology, is if you look at billionaires and 100 millionaires, very, very wealthy people, I don't know any of them that don't want to make movies. Once they kind of reach this point, they say, oh, now I want to turn my life to telling stories and making movies. And that isn't something that just changes in your DNA when you become rich. everybody wants to tell stories. And now the guild, with 1.1 million people in it, all paying a monthly fee, are actually, that money goes to help make the films come to life. Like, they're the equivalent of a lot of very, very, very wealthy people coming in and making their own movies as a group of people, but each person's just paying like $20 a month rather than, and they get a vote on the content. So we're actually allowing that human desire to flourish, but with the Angel Guild, it's just tapping into something that's already there. It's already part of us, and allowing people to do it as a movement in a very meaningful way and put things on the big screen that, I mean, when you think about these movies we're putting up in theaters and wide releases and doing tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions in some cases, what we're doing is we're, I think it's going to become the most powerful community, maybe ever in entertainment.
So many people look at philanthropy and business as so binary. You can either do good or you can do well. But the most successful endeavors in life do well and do good at the same time. You can change the
Yes.
world and make money at the same time. And matter of fact, a lot of people, because they're motivated by money, if they're in a world-changing environment, the more they change the world, the more money they'll make. And
Yep.
there's no better way to change the world and to shape culture than storytelling, giving people hope, giving people faith,
Mhm.
celebrating and shining a light on the true, the good, and the beautiful, which is what
Yep.
you all do every day. Now I really want to talk about movie theaters because
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
it's my childhood. I mean, we all have
Mhm.
memories of going to the movies every weekend with our family. I mean, the smell of popcorn just puts you in a time and place in life, but we were sort of stripped of that experience, during COVID, and a lot of that didn't come back. The world sort of just went streaming, and even some of the big movie houses have just said, "Well, we're just going to throw everything on streaming now and do non-theatrical releases." You all are sort of bucking that trend, and you're putting out theatrical releases and putting butts in seats in the movie theaters, creating this community environment. Talk to me about how important the movie theater still is in our day-to-day lives.
So, it's great segue. The movie theater is like, I remember thinking when I was younger, I thought, home theaters they're becoming cheap enough that everybody's just going to want a home theater. It's a different experience, and I'll explain why. So, Andrew Peterson, the author and creator of the Wingfeather Saga, he has a blog that he initiated. It has a lot of different authors, called The Rabbit Room. And in that blog, there's a post that talks about the sacrament of the cinema. And in particular, it goes through and gives the parallels between the sacrament, the Eucharist, the Holy Communion, whatever your faith tradition calls it, and cinemas. In both of them, you come in and you give up all of your distractions. You leave all your work behind, you shut off your screens, and you just focus on what's being presented. In the case of the sacrament, it's the Lord Jesus Christ, his body on the altar, and you're remembering what he did for you. And then in the case of cinema, you're coming in and you're surrendering your social media, your screen time, what's going on at home, no distractions, and you're sitting down with a group of people in a communion-like experience, and all experiencing the same thing together. And just like this sacrament can change your life, like going and focusing with your community on the sacrament can be a very transformative experience. Every Christian that's had that experience knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you can go to the theater and you can have a completely transformative experience where you watch Sound of Freedom, and just audiences all over the world were giving standing ovations and hugging each other and crying together and meeting people, and then going out and starting orphanages. And I met a guy, or sorry, one of my coworkers met a guy in El Salvador who had watched the movie 12 times and had now built 3 orphanages because of Sound of Freedom. And so you're seeing these changes, or the story of Possum Trot, the Sound of Hope, that movie. I have a friend who watched that, and his kids are all grown up, and he said, now we're adopting. And they're actually going back into raising family again to adopt like they were inspired to in this film. And so it's this communal experience that can be life-changing. And unfortunately, through most of Hollywood's history, a good chunk of it, it's just full of nihilistic stuff. So the life-changing stuff actually gets embedded in the wrong direction. And then people say, well, social media is the future. Or the Netflix CEO just came out and said, we're saving Hollywood. The theatrical model's broken. It's outdated. I just fundamentally disagree. You're seeing a resurgence of teenagers and kids and early 20-year-olds all showing back up to the theater because it is the way for them to finally disconnect. It's the quickest, fastest way to pull off of your social media and go into an environment where you can actually disconnect from everything that's just like bombarding you. And that feels counterintuitive, but it's not. It actually, like, it's a true disconnect. It's a true communal experience. And that's why people are craving getting to theaters. And so what Angel is doing in the Angel Guild community is we're together with 1 million people throwing movies into theaters. We'll have around 8 movies this year release in theaters. And then next year we're planning to, we're just building up this system where we can put movies into theaters that change lives. And they're great entertainment. They're entertainment first, but they're entertainment with principles. And so it allows for culture changing moments to happen. And if you look at all of the stuff discussed on social media, a huge chunk of it's just what's in theaters. Sure, theatrical, people throw back and they'll say, yeah, it's less than 50 billion a year for theatrical. Streaming's way bigger. Social media is way bigger. And yes, monetarily and total eyeballs, yes. But the one that is actually changing culture is the theater. There's a recent article, a video on Dude Perfect, where Dude Perfect is saying, not Dude Perfect, but the team is saying that one of the most important pieces of Dude Perfect is actually their concerts. Their events where you go to a stadium and you are entertained by Dude Perfect. That it's not just the streaming part of the brand that's so important. It's that in-person moment. And we see it that way. We see the in-person communal moment is so important to changing culture.
You're disconnecting with everything but humans, and you're actually connecting with the humans where you're there. It's
Yes.
human connection, which people don't realize it, but I mean, some do, but we crave that. And we sort of have created a society that, we feel like we're as connected as we've ever been through social media and technology, but through all that, we're actually as disconnected as we've ever been. And I like that you bring up concerts. I mean, I feel more connected to humans at a concert than I do anywhere else. I don't check my phone. I'm present in one experience, sharing it with, at a concert, thousands of people, at a movie, hundreds of people. And we crave
Yes.
those experiences. So one more sort of big question, and then a little lightning round, and we'll get you out of here. In 15 years, not where do you want, but where do you think the film industry is, and where Angel Studios is in it?
Well, I hope we're a big player. I can't, because we're going public as a company, I can't make forward-facing statements.
Forward-looking assumptions.
I'm a little bit hands tied on that. I do want where theatrical will be in 15 years. I think it's going to hold. That's my view. That's not talking about Angel's position in that, but I think that theatrical is going to hold. I don't necessarily think it's going to get like a lot bigger, but it's already, big enough. And so, and I think that that people are going to desire more and more as the information age kicks in for stories. As technology scales, human empathy has not scaled with it. Social media, you see a breakdown of human empathy in politics and everything. A friend of mine, he explained, he said, he's a Silicon Valley tech guy, and he said, human empathy has not scaled with technology. He said, but you know what does scale is stories. Stories can scale human empathy. And so this is where timeless stories are told, is in the theater. That is the format. You can't, like, as much as you think it's the same to watch in your home theater, if you can pause and go to the bathroom and pause to go get ice cream, you are having a different experience than the person who never pauses and holds it, because not pausing changes the entire rhythm of the movie. Like if you leave the theater at the wrong time, or you pause at the wrong time, and the director has set up a perfect orchestra, it's like being in front of one of the London Symphony or something, and then saying, pause, I need to go use the restroom, and coming back in. That is a completely different experience, even though every single element of that orchestra is set up for your experience to be just how they want. And so I think that the way we combat human, how we combat not being able to scale human empathy is with storytelling, and storytelling in long form, not ethereal social media where it just disappears.
Jeff, there's no way that somebody with the amount of kids that you have doesn't pause movies, okay?
But if I go to the theater, I can't.
I know. All right, 3 lightning round questions, and then we'll tell everybody where they can find you and how they can join the guild. So, first film that moved you spiritually. Doesn't have to be an angel film, just first film in your life.
That's interesting. It was actually Lion King.
Okay.
Spiritually, there was a moment where I remember my dad was working through some stuff, and I went to my mom after watching The Lion King, and I said, I think Dad's in a situation like Simba. And just as a little kid, I was a little kid, but he's in a situation like Simba where he's learning, he doesn't know how to deal with some stuff that's happened.
Okay. All right. I didn't expect a Disney plug in the Angel Studios episode.
I didn't expect either, but I got to tell you, that through that story of Lion King, which I think has a lot of timeless principles in it, and it comes from the era of Disney that we love, that God was able to speak to me through that.
All right, so when everybody asked Tom Brady which Super Bowl ring was his favorite, he always said the next one, so I'm not allowing you to have that answer to this question. Favorite angel project ever?
That's so hard.
Picking your favorite child.
my favorite right now is Sketch.
Okay, why?
Which is coming out in August.
That's like saying the next one, but that's fair. I'll give it to you. Tell us about Sketch.
So Sketch is this, it is a pure entertainment. It's basically like if you took Inside Out 2 and Inside Out 2 and Stranger Things had a baby, that's Sketch. It's very family friendly. Little kids love it. Has a little bit of scariness in it, but not too much. It's PG. And but it teaches, the entire movie is a symbol of how families can deal with loss, how to emotionally deal with loss. This is not a faith-driven film per se. It's more faith. It isn't directly faith. It's entertainment, but the principles in it are correct. And it is such a fun movie. And watching my kids squeal with like scariness for a second and then just laughing with delight all in the same moment is just it's so fun.
And that's going to be a theatrical release.
August 6th. Yeah.
August 6th.
It'll be in theaters.
Cool. All right. Last lightning round. Would you rather put out, and you can only choose one, would you rather put out a hit animated kids series or a record-breaking thriller about spiritual warfare?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh man, it's so hard. I would love to do a record-breaking thriller about spiritual warfare. That'd be awesome. We already had the hit animated.
Yeah,
kids
you already
series,
have
so
that.
we got to do the other one.
Okay, cool. All right, Jeff, this was awesome. So what I want people to leave with is the ability to join the guild if they're not already in it. How can we do that? How can we support Angel Studios? Where can we find you?
Just go to angel.com.
How did you get that URL?
Yeah, that was a miraculous story in and of itself. There was we wanted that URL at the very beginning of this adventure, and we couldn't get it. And this company bought the URL and the company for a huge amount of money, and then they had just sat on it forever, and they finally put it up for sale. I think it cost us over $2 million to get, but we were able to get it. And we were bidding against some major players, but we picked it up. It was worth it.
All right, angel.com, the Angel app. Again, the guild. How do we get in?
Just go to angel.com and just start going in and watching movies, and you can join the guild there. And once you're a member of the guild, you get there's a superpower that guild members have, which is when you finish a movie, don't even have to finish it, you can grab a URL as a guild member that allows other people to watch the movie for free. They don't have to be a member of the guild. So basically it's like institutional password sharing, where you can share your link with anybody and they get access to that film or that episode, and you can do it as many times as you want. And because you're a guild member, they get a watch. So you don't have to go and make up some crazy password to password share or whatever so that your brother can get on the same thing. You just grab the link, send it to your friends, and they can watch whatever life-changing movie you want to send them, and they don't have to sign up, they don't have to pay. And guild members get that as a perk.
Very cool. You started out doing something very unpopular, and you become the most popular men in the industry. And kudos to y'all for the courage you have to do that. Tell your brothers I said hi, and thanks for coming on, Jeff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We the people. Why you quiet? It's time to stand up for the truth. And they coming for our kids, so who gon' stand up for the youth? And we know we win because Yeshua is the proof. We the people like Garcia, so that's no excuse.